Will gender recognition be an issue in the general election? Annalisa Dodds, the Shadow Women and Equality Secretary, has said that she wants to strip out the futile and dehumanising parts of acquiring a gender recognition certificate. It seems that a simplification plan may be proposed, which would require sign-off by a single doctor. Kemi Badenoch, the current Women and Equalities Minister, said that Labour should allow professionals to do their job properly. Joining me now is feminist author and journalist Julie Bindel for her take on this. Hello, Julie. Thank you for joining us on GB News Sunday lunchtime. Have you kept track of the various positions of the political parties on gender recognition?
Yes, and quite frankly, none of them come out of this looking good. So back in 2015, we had the then Minister for Women, a Tory, Maria Miller, who suggested that we should, as her first job, in fact, enrol, look at the Gender Recognition Act of 2004 and update it so that any man could self-declare that he was a woman, be given a gender recognition certificate without any intervention whatsoever, and then be legally recognised as a woman. Of course, that would also work the other way around, but feminists are concerned about men self-identifying as women for obvious reason. The Greens are absolutely bonkers on this issue and referred to women as non-men, and they have been absolutely extreme in Scotland, in England, in Wales, where they have decided that the rights of men that identify as women should trump those of actual women. Labour, of course, where we have the likes of Keir Starmer, Annalisa Dodds, decide that there is no definition of a woman that anyone can possibly pin down. Some men have cervixes, and as Keir Starmer said when he updated his position, still ludicrous. Yes, all right, I admit only 99.9%, or rather 99.9% of women don't have a penis. I mean, absolute craziness. And every other party, the Lib Dems, have bent over backwards to accept that men can be women, which is ridiculous. So none of the parties have been good on this. The Labour Party has sidelined the likes of Rosie Duffield, one of the only MPs that's ever spoken out about this, and she's been monstered and vilified for it. And the Tory Party, we have Penny Mordaunt, who herself sounds just like any other trans rights activist. So I'm very concerned about it, but I'm also really hopeful that if it is an election issue, which it undoubtedly will, that it will be seen as the important issue that it is, not just about a tiny number of trans-identified people that only affects that number of people, but an issue that affects 51% of the electorate, of course, which is women.
My perception was that with the publication of the Cass report, there was a certain amount of scuttling to new political positions going on across the parties. Even the Scottish National Party was affected by the Cass report, particularly with its change of leader. So the things that you've just described, are they the up-to-date positions of the political parties, would you say?
Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, we've lost two leaders in Scotland, the SNPs that were, again, capitulating to the Greens on their absolutely bonkers policies on gender ideology. We know that that the next leader won't be able to put forward this position because various kind of disasters have ensued. We're also aware that the Tory party are trying to put through a more sensible view and saying, well, of course we understand what a woman is. But I'm sorry, a 2-year-old child knows the difference between male and female, what a man and a woman is. It's not exactly a radical position to say there are two sexes and that's the end of that, and that it's not the same as gender ideology. With Keir Starmer and with the Labour Party, who knows? Wes Streeting has rolled back. He used to shrill for the trans women are women crew. He was part of Stonewall. He took on that ideology. He said that he apologised to Rosie Duffield about the harm that she's suffered for just basically speaking the truth and being brave enough to speak out. So there have been some backtracking. There's been a little bit of virtue signalling and posturing. But so far, I don't know whether any of them will say, OK, enough is enough. If we are elected, or when we are elected, we will make sure that trans rights and the rights of men that claim to be women will not trump those of actual women and girls, that we will get rid of the notion that any man, whether he's a sex offender or not, should be in a women's prison or a women's changing room or a hospital ward or a rape crisis centre or a women's aid refuge. That's what we want to hear from politicians right now.
What about the Annalisa Dodds proposal, if that's what it turns out to be, that someone could achieve a gender reallocation certificate on the basis of a single doctor signing off? What is your view of that?
My view is it's as offensive as it's ridiculous, and it's dangerous. This is self-identification, which is what Nicola Sturgeon was pushing, which is what the Greens have pushed. And what it means is that you would effectively be able to find any GP that signs up to this crazy ideology. You could go to a private GP, one of those that's also prescribing cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers at the moment, because there's no legislation to stop them from doing that. So all you would need would be a friendly GP who swallowed the trans Kool-Aid to sign off the fact that you, as a man, male-bodied, having had no surgical or hormonal intervention, is now legally a woman. And for the record, I don't think that that should be the system, whether or not a man has been through full gender reassignment surgery and hormonal treatment. I think across the board that a male-born person remains male. And the reason why it matters to feminists like me is because of the risk of male violence and the risk to the safety and well-being of women and girls. That's why we fought for single-sex spaces, laws and provisions right back before the 1970s, and we're in fear of losing them all now.
And I suppose it's quite hard to envisage how, if you have a gender recognition certificate, you could then be denied access to women's sport, for example, or denied your request to go to a women's prison if you happen to be a convict.
Of course. We have trans activists on Twitter, on X, constantly telling feminists and others that they are legally a woman. So shut up, because I have as much right to claim to be a woman as you do. Now, men already have rights. The reason why women fought for special laws and rights is because we were being harmed through our vulnerability in sharing spaces with men, or like back in the bad old days when we didn't even have public bathrooms to go into, so women tended not to go out or stay out very long. Look, not every man is a sexual predator, far from it, but enough are a risk to women that we fought for these rights. And self-identification, where a man can have a gender recognition certificate because he decides he's female, is a huge risk to women and girls, and it's blatant disrespect and an insult.
Thank you very much, Julie Bindel. It will be most interesting to see whether this is indeed an issue in the general election. Thank you.